Anybody have a preference for today?
Fresh.
Okay, when you're ready.
Okay, so welcome to this evening's planning committee. And we will start with apologies for absence, please, Heather.
Yes, we have one, which has been Councillor Eileen Washington, and we have Councillor Jill Haynes, who is substituting for her.
Great. So we're all happy with that. Apologies. Can we move on to any declarations of interest?
No.
No. If you see anything during the course of the evening, then obviously just minutes for the meeting held on the 18th of February. So that
Honestly. It's assignment in my agenda. Move them across. The 11th of March. Thank you.
Any chairman's report on urgent items?
No, we have neither of those.
Any public questions in accordance with standing orders 22 and 23?
No, none of those have been received either.
And any letters of objection?
So none that have been directly submitted to us from the any objectors, but we have received one who is working on behalf of one of the objectors.
Okay, that's good. So we are looking at applications registered week ending the 14th of the 2nd, 2025, 21st of the 2nd, and the 28th of the 2nd, 2020. So we will go to read. Suddenly. So 2025 0119 0133 2269 0164 2236 do not meet the criteria, so and neither does 5/2025 0146. So we'll go to 5/2025 0141. So that 1 Wheatfield Road.
Okay, this is the third application that has been submitted for the same proposal. The first was refused by SADC due to no back survey being submitted. The second, which was submitted directly to the Secretary of State, was refused due to insufficient evidence to justify the demolition of the property and no details of how the applicant would address the biodiversity net gain requirements. A back survey has been submitted for this new application with the relevant mitigation measures outlined, but there are no details of a BNG of any BNG intentions included, as the application form states that the application is exempt from this requirement due to the building being custom self-build property for the applicant's own occupation. This was the same wording as was included in the refused application. This committee had no objection in principle, subject to the appropriate ecological and back surveys being conducted and sufficient tree protection measures implemented to protect the nature, to protect the mature tree on the frontage. Brief details of the proposal are: the current property is the original, which appears dated and in need of modernisation, but is in a habitable state. It states it sits on a good sized plot with the gardens and properties in the uplands to one side and an infill dwelling to the other side. Proposed new 4-bedroom dwellings will sit further back on the plot from number 1B Wheatfield Road, with just a single-storey double garage to that side. The ridgeline of the proposed new dwelling appears to sit lower than that of number 1B. The gable fronted design follows similar design to the neighbouring property and others in the street scene. Trees and hedges are to be retained, with an additional tree added to the frontage to enhance the area close to the substation, not conservation area. And I've said, consider the committee have no objection in principle to the proposal, provided the reasons for refusal of past applications are fully satisfied. Policies ESD 13, H2, SS1 of the neighbourhood plan and NPF Schedule 7 refers. Thank you.
Any views?
I'm just looking at the street scene of Wakefield Road, and they've got the house directly opposite is huge. So it's very much in keeping with the one they want to design, isn't it?
It's BNG,
Biodiversity net gain.
right.
So essentially, if you're removing any form of sort of kind of green space or landscaping, as of, I think it was February, March last year, any applications received after that, they determined that you then have to actually put something back to where you're removing. So, yeah, there's a various metric that they have to work to. But they haven't actually submitted one at all because they deem that it's exempt, because the application is for the applicant's own sort of advantage rather than it being on the open market.
Commercial thing.
Yeah,
Is that a valid exemption?
it is in terms of the wording, but the inspector from the Secretary of State deemed that that wasn't a justifiable reason to remove the property.
So the second planning application was submitted directly to the Secretary of State and was refused due to insufficient evidence to justify the demolition of the property. Does that force SADC to consider that?
So I think that the Secretary of State has taken the neighbourhood plan wording literal, really. So on the basis of other applications that we've seen of this similar kind of sort of intent, District Council don't have a problem with it. But I think that the first application that was submitted directly to St Albans was refused because they didn't have the ecological surveys in place. They, I think, took the decision to go straight to the Secretary of State that you have the option to do now. We've obviously had a few applications where applicants have decided to do that, but it backfired because of the Secretary Inspector looked and took the wording that's in the neighbourhood plan as literal, that actually there's nothing wrong with it, apart from it being a bit dated. What's stopping the applicant from just modernising the existing property? Whereas on the basis of other applications that I've seen for probably far more modern, less sort of kind of outdated properties, the district's quite happy for them to be demolished and replaced.
But it doesn't tie the hand of the District Council in its his decision by the planning inspector.
No.
I mean, because obviously a more modern property than this one would be, from the point of view of the sustainability.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much better. To knock it down and redo it.
I base sort of kind of our recommendation on the basis of that the application fundamentally does not differ now than what it did 2 applications ago. So if the Secretary had come back with something very different, to say that, you know, there are the reasons that the proposed replacement dwelling was out of keeping, was too large, bulk, massing scale, etc., then potentially we could have reviewed and said, okay, on the basis of what they're saying, should we revisit it?
Yeah.
They were just saying that there's nothing there to justify it being demolished.
Yeah. And where's the gold Capri?
No.
Any views, anybody?
I don't. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I do.
All happy?
I mean, on the basis of, you know, in that street scene there, the house that's next door,
Yeah, exactly.
it's,
And if you,
Okay.
you know, street scene, house opposite is even bigger.
They're all bigger down there, aren't they? Now?
Yeah, and also that thing of the houses are meant to line up, and because of where the house they've built forward, and that means they're just now in line with the house next to it. So I don't know. I don't have a problem with it because the one B slightly further forward.
I really wish they'd done a bat survey last year.
Yeah,
or not gone to the Secretary of
Or not
State,
gone to
but actually
Secretary of State.
resubmitted to St Albans.
Yeah.
So we're happy with it, yeah?
yeah, I think so.
Oh, yeah.
It's great. I like you happy with the wording and everything.
5/20/24 189, it doesn't meet the criteria, so we need 5/20/25 0148 from Heather 07 Churchview.
Okay, the property is the right-hand side of a pair of semi-detached properties with proposal looking to extend to two-storey level over the existing flat roof rear ground floor extension with a two-storey extension to the side to expand the ground floor accommodation and existing bedrooms at first floor. There are no additional bedrooms being added. Neighbouring attached semi-detached property already has a two-storey rear extension which projects further rearwards than the proposal. The rear building line of the neighbour at number 39 does not extend rearwards as far as the proposed extension. However, they have a side garage between the boundary and their property, which reduces the possible impact on them from the proposed rear extension. No pre-works and not conservation. Said to consider no objection, subject to no loss of immunity to number 39 Churchfield. Policy ESD2 of the neighbourhood plan and policy 72 of the district plan affairs.
Yeah, so I think this particular photo here really does sort of kind of show that actually the neighbour
Built right out.
Yeah.
built, to the rear, and it's going to mirror that.
Yeah.
And as has, I think, the one next to them on the other side.
Yeah, looks like
No, I think they've got a garage actually between them. Yes, if you look here, you can kind of see there is actually a garage, like a single.
Low level, yeah.
So there is that garage between them, but yeah, they haven't extended out, don't you think?
we all happy with that one?
Yeah.
So,
Rent back.
yep,
Our friends are back.
we move to 5/20/24 258 Rosebery Avenue.
Okay, this is the third application that has been submitted for the site in quick succession. The first was withdrawn at the LPA. The second, which was submitted directly to the Secretary of State, was refused due to the net loss of a dwelling due to the existing two properties being demolished in favour of a single dwelling. This application is for a pair of semi-detached dwellings, therefore addressing the Secretary of State's reason for refusal. Each property will be 3-bedroomed with accommodation in the roof space. The ridgeline of the proposal is lower than that of the refused application and is lower than the neighbouring properties. Rear building line falls in line with number 11 Rosebery Avenue and the dwelling house number 7, which is set a long way from the boundary with a detached garage between. The Secretary of State did not express concerns over the scale and design of the last application, and nor did this committee. A BNG report has been carried out, which shows the net gain achieved is less than the target set due to insufficient additional habitat added as part of the proposal. The proposed development will result in a 18.5% net loss in habitat units and therefore does not meet the requirement. In order to meet the required 10% net gain for habitat units, a further 0.03 habitat units will need to be achieved. This can be of any distinctiveness. In statutory credits, so if statutory credits are to be considered, then a total of 0.06 credits of tier A1 will be required. This is not possible on site, and off-site compensation will be required. The background to the site is that currently on the site is what presents as a single detached property, but is actually a pair of infill masonettes which are out of character with other properties in the street. The 2 car parking spaces per property with the existing vehicular crossover widened. New soft landscaping is to be added to the frontage, with 1 tree to the rear is to be removed and replaced with 2 to the front, 1 for each property. 6 new trees are to be added to the rear, with tree protection measures planned to protect the existing back garden trees. 2 air source heat pumps proposed at side elevations, and the site is in the conservation area with both neighbouring properties locally listed. The committee had no objection in principle to the proposal, subject to the applicant satisfying the BNG requirements as detailed in the ecology report. Policy ESD 13 and 14 of the neighbourhood plan affairs. And there is actually a letter of support online from a local resident.
Letter of support.
Letter of support.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As it stands in conduit with what
Yes.
is in the law.
And do you think that you raised about the lack of habitat units will be an issue?
I don't think so, because ultimately what they'll need to do is they'll need to come to an agreement with the district council as to how they can be basically achieved off-site.
So they'll have a conversation about that rather
So
than
that- yeah.
refuse it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we'll be faced with that in quite a lot of situations where potentially, there's an opportunity for the district council and possibly even us to see about offering these units to applicants to offset their
biodiversity net gain requirements.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot better than written.
Yes, I agree. I mean, it's an infill property anyway.
Yeah. But if with the previous property, the district council is not tied by the previous planning decision of the planning authority or the government department, surely that would also apply here.
Yes, potentially. So I mean, they could have applied directly to St Albans for the single dwelling. But maybe they've worked
Change
out
plans.
Sick of it.
actually having two smaller ones is financially just as viable.
Everybody happy with this one?
Very
Yeah.
much so.
Good. We'll move on to 5/2025/004, which is land to the rear of 1 to 5 Common Lane, please, Heather.
Okay, planning permission was granted in 2022 for a single-storey, two-bedroom property on the site. Although that property sat on a smaller footprint than is proposed in this application and was of a basic flat roof design. This new proposal is for a pair of more conventional style three-bedroom semi-detached properties. The application site is taken from the end of the rear gardens of numbers 1 to 5 Backwood Road, which are quite long and borders, it's not actually 1 to 5 Backwood Road, it's actually 1 to 5 Common Lane, which are quite long and borders number 40 Backford Road. Access to the site is off Backford Road, which slopes upwards from Common Lane. Due to the slope of the road, the new property's ridge lines step down towards the properties on Common Lane. Each property has a garage and 1 parking space, which is marginally deficient from the parking standards requirement. But based on the approved application, the site is deemed to be positioned in a sustainable location with good access to local amenities and public transport. Single garage is also proposed for number 1 Common Lane. The rear gardens are 127 square metres for plot 1 and 110 square metres for plot 2. There are no details of the size of garden space retained for the Common Lane properties, though it appears that this is sufficient based on the block plan. 5 fruit trees are to be added to the rear gardens and limited soft landscaping added to the frontage. Biodiversity survey has been conducted and concludes that at the time of the survey, there will be potential net loss of 33.8% and a loss of 0.05 units. Proposals indicate that there is no potential to achieve the required 10% net gain within the application site, and therefore an off-site level of contribution will be required and agreed with the LPA. So I've said at the point of me looking at this, which was before we received the letter of objection, was no objection subject to the applicant agreeing with the LPA an arrangement to satisfy the BNG requirements. Policies ESD 13 and 14 of the native plan and policy 70 and 74 of the district plan affairs. However, since the agenda was issued, I have had sight of a letter of objection for number 1 Common Lane, who outlines their concerns about the effect that basically the houses will have. So just snippets of the letter of objection is that the development has its greatest impact on my property, which is number 1 Common Lane. The plans show the houses would have completed edges approximately 50% closer to the rear build line of my property, will be of a highly intrusive appearance. The bulk of the proposed development and its proximity to the rear of my house will be highly intrusive and represents a severe loss of amenity. We'll also have a loss of amenity to other properties on Common Lane too. The measurement from window to the side dwelling wall is 25 metres. And then 17.5 metres to the garage wall in the rear of number 1 Common Lane to the new development. Backford Road is inclined upwards from the rear of number 1 Common Lane and towards number 40 Backford Road, where the incline eases significantly. As a result, the proposed development has a lower ground level for the first semi than number 40 Backford Road, and we would expect the ridgeline to be below that of the adjacent property. In fact, the developer's plans illustrate this point as a second semi-detached property moving towards Common Lane is lower again in both ground level and ridge height. Unfortunately, the developer appears to have completely missed the point that the level drops further before reaching number 1 Common Lane, which has the effect of accentuating the height and bulk of the proposed development relative to my property. They're also concerned about that the sunlight getting into their property, which broadly faces west and receives afternoon sun,
So they'll have a significant loss of natural sunlight as a direct consequence of the development. Also, further impact of the development is that the rear gardens of proposed properties will be created to the rear of the proposed buildings and will, as seen in the picture, afford direct line of vision into the rear bedrooms of numbers 1, 3 and 5 Common Lane. This will reduce privacy and have a negative effect on the residential amenity.
Have they gone into the gardens of 3? They used up the gardens of
Yeah,
3 and 5.
Yeah. so not fully.
So they must have, were those gardens sold?
Yes, yes,
They were.
Yeah.
And then one, that's their garden going to the end and they haven't sold any of it.
So she has no intention to.
No.
No.
Yeah, so kind of moving on, so those kind of were the fundamental planning concerns, but the resident number 1 has detailed that the applicant hasn't fulfilled the requirement of actually notifying them under the certificate B that they intend to submit a planning application on their land. Because you don't have to own land to put in a planning application on it. However, you do have to serve notice on the owners of it. And the lady here is stating that she found out about the application purely from receiving the letter from the district council that an application had been submitted.
She's
Number
number
1.
And is it that
Yeah.
second garage that's going on to her land only or more?
Yes, so basically what they're proposing to do, so you can see we're here, that the garage with the red door, that is the garage number 1 Common Lane. So
Yes.
the lady owns that along with obviously the rest of the garden.
To the right, around the brown, dark brown fence.
Yeah. So ultimately what they're expecting, or as part of this application, is that they will own the proportion of the lady's land that they're wanting, along with the garage space, but they are going to build her a garage as part of the application.
And where's that garage that's on the right?
So the
Where
garage,
is that on that, on,
so I'll show you. So here you can see, so
Yeah.
there's, so the garage that's on the right is slap
Yeah.
in the middle of the development site that you can see
but
there.
where is that on the first picture? Where's it located on here? Is it where the black one is or is it where the red one is?
What's that? The
second garage?
so the garage that's going to be built for her
Yeah,
is going to be for much like the number of meters down into her garden.
so it's gonna be where the shed is as opposed
No
to the red.
further, much further
Oh.
down.
That's just a bit cheeky.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're working on, so the applicant is working on the proviso is that
She'll sell the land.
she'll sell the land,
Oh, I see.
yes,
Well,
and provide her with a garage as part of the planning application. So well, obviously we've been party to that information, but in terms of a planning matter, that doesn't, we can't really comment on that. We have to look at the merits of the application in front of it.
so can the St Albans District Council approve planning on a plot where someone doesn't own it
Yes.
and they don't want, the other person doesn't want to
Yeah,
sell
'cause
it?
that's irrelevant. That's not a planning matter. That
So
becomes.
what happens if they get it, they get planning permission, can they just start building?
No, because they don't own the land that they're wanting to build on. It's no different than the likes of Crest Nicholson, for instance, putting in a planning application for the land that's obviously over at Northwest.
But I
on
kind of
North
get
Hill.
that if the land is potentially up for sale, right, as a farmer with a field. And he's saying, yes, whoever get planning application, then I'll sell it to you. But this situation feels very different.
Agreed, but it's
Doesn't
not,
really
it's
matter.
not.
So basically, if you've got a big garden and someone comes along and goes, I think I can squeeze a house in there, they can apply for planning permission, even though you've no intention of selling that
Correct.
garden.
Correct, yeah.
Could you just clarify the ownership of the land at the back there? So the land in front of the garage.
Right, okay, so there's, in a sense, there's 3 bits of land, 3 areas of land. There is the land that is owned by number 1 Common Lane, which ultimately is the whole stretch of the closed board fence.
Yes.
Including the garage.
With the red front.
With the red front and the section behind.
Yeah.
Looks basically like the equivalent of another parking space.
Yeah.
is kind of-
Where there's some blue bits, that's theirs. Is that right? There's some blue bits at the
Yeah,
front.
so that's kind of, yeah.
That's all hers.
So that's, yeah, so ultimately you can see there's like a plinth to the left.
Yeah.
That was the garage that belonged to number 3 Common Lane,
Who sold it?
who sold it. So that garage has been demolished, which also the lady in the letter details that a party wall agreement was not entered into for that, but obviously it's happened, it's gone. And you can see the land behind has been cleared.
Yep.
Because there's a section of, well, basically kind of you go 50% down of the garden, there is closed board fence that's been erected that is the ends of the boundary line for numbers 3 and 5 Common Lane.
But if
And what
number
does,
1 owns the garage with the red door and access to the garage,
Yep,
they don't need access. They can access the land at the back of 3 and 5 in that small bit of,
yeah,
yeah.
so they don't actually need to demolish her garage in order to access the land to do the building.
no,
they don't. However, they need her to sell her land
In order to get the two
in order
properties
to
on.
get the 2 properties.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
So it does slightly drift on.
so yeah, so if I try and sort of kind of show.
that's
them
not
here.
what they're doing now, they're doing something else.
So this, okay, so this should hopefully help you. So this application was what was approved.
Right.
So if I sort of kind of get to the which,
Road's which on there, it's so
And the
small.
planning person owns that bit of.
yeah,
land.
so this could be carried out without number 1 having to sell any of their land or
Yeah.
the garage at all.
Yeah, and they own the land to do
Yeah.
that on.
So there's number 1, number 3, number 5, number 7, Common Lane.
Yeah.
Okay, there's number 40 Batford Road. That is the garage that is
Yeah.
with the red door.
Yeah.
So, and then you can see here that number 1, that's essentially
Yeah.
their land
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So that they still own all of their land that was under the approved planning application. But the fresh application has come forward, which is to ultimately come along
Yeah.
up to here, utilising all of the land
Build a pair.
per semi-detached houses and a garage at the side.
So actually, if you're looking at the 2 new houses, the garage on the left will be just to the left of where her red garage is now. And where her red garage is will be the left semi.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the kind of, yes, so the new application. So, I mean, bear in mind, so that's like the boundary line. So that's probably going to be, there's going to be the garage for number, so like plot 1.
And then her
They'll
red
have their
garage will be,
house.
yeah,
Then you'll have the second house and then you'll have kind of,
Garage.
well, probably kind of going off piste a bit here. And then the, like the other garage will be
Yeah.
added there.
Is there room for another property?
What, if number 1 doesn't sell?
No, if on the basis of that plot.
Yeah. There would not be room, I wouldn't have thought, to have 2.
and that's single story as well, isn't it? That-
Yeah.
Well, that's approved.
Yeah,
That was approved 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And that planning permission passed on that, was lapsed on that. Definitely, they actually have to do it in 3 years and that lapsed in February.
Oh, that's
Yeah, for this,
So they can't do anything.
can't do it.
And who put in that planning application?
Same developer as well.
Well,
so,
So anyway, so obviously my wording was off the basis of what I was seeing prior to the fresh information received.
but if what you've just said anyway, there is no legal, no way that I was can say no, really, just
It's-
because someone else owns the land.
No, so we have to look at it in terms of its planning merits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But-
with that, so it doesn't, so I guess my question, going around the houses a little bit, no pun intended, is that, based on that complaint, would you change your consideration?
So I probably would on the early part of the complaint where number 1 Common Lane is very concerned about loss of amenity.
Okay,
See, so yes, so that's where I would change my view, not on the basis of the other information that she
Yeah.
shared with us, because
Yeah.
that isn't a planning consideration. That becomes more of a legal thing that she needs to consult legal advice and kind of serve whatever notice. But it could be that if it's proven that the certificate B hadn't been issued in the way that they should have done, the application may be invalidated anyway,
Fine, okay.
you know, so.
So, where are we at? Do we view this development as a loss of amenity to number 1 Common Lane?
Well, actually, this is quite good, actually, it's one that I've done here, so you can see here where the existing garage is, and then when I flick forward, you can see.
We can't, so as far as,
Yeah.
so, so basically she can't access her garage if they basically built that on top of it.
So what they're going to do is demolish it, but they're rebuilding her a new one.
But she
So how does she access it?
Yeah.
No.
So she can access it because
Oh,
they're
'cause you're
going
trying-
to, yeah,
okay.
because they'll basically move.
But
Move it
if
halfway
she
down the
doesn't
garden.
want a new one, she wants to keep her one. As far as I know, you're allowed to keep your property
Yeah.
if you want to. So therefore we refuse it because she wants to keep her garage.
But that's not a planning consideration though,
Okay,
just because the lady, you know, we have to work on the basis of that information hasn't been shared with us. You know, that could happen in a number of circumstances.
Okay.
A number of applications that we're looking at where somebody doesn't actually own it yet. Sometimes it could be that, you know, we're not to know necessarily that there's an arrangement that's been put to the owner of number 1 that's subject to me receiving planning permission, I'll pay you X.
Yeah.
So
oh, I see. So basically we have to go along with it then.
Subject to loss of any.
I mean, the thing is, the housing is the same as, it's similar size housing and similar kinds of housing to the one next to it on that Batford Road.
It's just a lot closer and it's going uphill, isn't it? So it feels.
Yeah, but the one next to it, isn't it? It's not Common Lane, but going up the hill.
Yeah.
that's
Similar kind.
Similar kind, but it's obviously a lot further away than they would be.
Oh, yeah.
But the build has more of an impact
On number 1.
on number 1.
They don't even.
Number 3 and number 5 are not as badly impacted on the build.
No, they get the garden overlooked, don't they?
So could we say not really, because number 1 is going to be overlooked by,
There's no real windows on the side apart from what looks like 2 ensuite windows, which I would assume would be.
and she's got, basically it's a garage, so it's not overlooking at all.
It's the loss of light and it's also
Yes.
the,
Well, is it
But
loss of
the-
light though? Is it still further in for you that it's not loss of light?
I think
Well-
because it's on a hill, you've got to sort of factor that in, is that
It's
it
gonna loom.
probably would, it
Yeah.
would probably have more of a dominant impact.
It's definitely going to
on
loom.
them.
It's like, as Kirsty said, it's going to loom more than the other one further up the hill.
I mean, you can either express concern over the loss of amenity
Yeah.
and detrimental impact on number 1, or if you don't feel strongly to say that, you can stick with what we've said along the lines of, you know, provided the BNG requirements are satisfied and no loss of amenity, the number 1 Common Lane. It depends how strong you want to feel. You know, in terms of the measurements that I've taken, they are within the realm, you know, they are within policy. Because there's 25 metres from the new dwelling wall to the rear boundary or the rear building line of number 1 Common Lane.
How many car parking spaces is a 3-bed?
So there's in theory they need 2.5.
Right.
But on the basis of there's 2, there's a garage and one off-street parking space. So they're deficient by half a space. However, because of, based on the previous application, it's deemed to be a sustainable location. The district council are happy to accept that it's marginally deficient.
Because that's a real bottleneck for parking, because obviously you've got Common Lane, you've got Batford Road and you've got Catherine Warrington School. And so in terms of parents parking at pickup time and parking up Batford Road, that is a real issue for the residents around there. As Mr. Cairns has written to us about
Yeah.
in the past. So What are we feeling? Anybody got a view?
Find another car park space.
What's the distance between the
25 metres
25 metres from
Is
number
from-
one to,
from the rear building line number 1.
Yeah.
To the flank wall of plot 2,
oh, right,
and it's 17.5 metres from the rear building line number 1, common lane, to the garage.
to its own garage.
I, whilst it's not necessarily what I want to do, I would say we express concern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
About loss of immunity to
Yeah.
number 1.
Yeah.
And not quite enough parking space. Can we add that in as well, or is that a bit, is that?
I mean, it's busy, it's just by Catherine Warrington, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think that you'd necessarily be able to say that in relation to the loss of on-street parking.
Okay.
Because in theory, there probably is space to still park 2 cars at the front of the properties. It's not like they're losing the whole of it.
Yeah.
There is only 2 dropped curbs, or 3 if you want to include the garage one as well.
But there's, oh no, it's just for 1, 3 and 5, isn't it? I mean, it seems unfair because it seems that number 1, who objects to it, is burdened with the loss of amenity.
Yeah.
Whilst 3 and 5 are not so impacted in terms of looking out onto the big house.
Although
Three,
we've
but 3
said-
and 5 are obviously sold their land off, they're not fussed either way, that's a done deal, isn't it?
If I was them, I'd make the developer pay through the nose for it, build a nice big tree and then move house. Because when new people come to look at it when it's built, yeah, that's just how it is. You know, there's no loss because they didn't see it before.
Okay. And in terms of the non-completion of the form,
We can certainly make reference to that.
okay,
You know, we can use sort of like the loose wording of, you know, subject to. But we can't parties having received the certificate fee as required by planning law.
okay. And we can't reject it on the grounds of loss of amenities, number 1.
Yes, we can. And you can go more than express concern if you wish. Can be recommend refusal.
But is it, I thought it was not within the distance, isn't it? It's still at a greater distance to loss of amenity.
So the window to window is fine, but that doesn't necessarily mean that some great looming property is going to have a detrimental impact.
I can't see St Albans saying no to it,
No,
and their desire for more properties.
they're gonna, aren't they?
think the way the NPPF is now is very hard push to do that.
Just so, what, just we express concern?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so.
There's quite a few concerns after all, loss of amenity, concerns about the land.
Yeah.
Getting like,
The only advantage number 1 gets is they've got a shorter distance to walk to their garage. And
yeah, which comes after the own garden. Okay, so we're going to express concern about loss of amenity to number 1,
Yeah.
yeah,
and we're going to mention the form.
Certificate B, yeah,
We can't call it in if it's an express concern, can we?
can.
What a good thing.
I don't think it'll get us anywhere though, will it?
So it needs to have received, I'm pretty sure if it's not 2, it could be 3 objections.
And the only person really objecting to it is number 1.
Which I we put here since a while since I've done it now. So.
'Cause it's not really gonna impact the house next to it on Batford Road, is it?
Okay, so
It's probably better for them. It's a bit in dead space at the moment, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, so needs to have just received one objection, actually. For it to be
From a resident.
potentially, yeah, so the flow chart sort of kind of, this follows the various things, so this application major or household development, so yes, it is, so then that follows on. If yes, can you get support from a town or district, town or parish council calling to the planning committee, and if that's a yes, that's filling in the calling form. Okay, so if it's successful as being accepted as calling, if the officer obviously recommends refusal, then that's it. It's an officer decision and then it's refused. But if the officer has it down as being recommended for approval, the question is, has a neighbour or third party objected within the consultation period on material grounds? And if it's a yes, then it goes to planning committee. And if it's a no, then it's officer delegation. But if we've got the lady, the owner number one objecting, in theory, it could go to an office, it could go to committee. But I suppose the key question is, what is the likely success of this being refused at committee?
I don't think I think it
Is my question.
I think it will go through, like Jill says.
Yeah, my instinct is we want it to get called in because we feel it's unjust, but as opposed to not not legal. That's the right way of phrasing it.
But actually, St Albans will let it go through.
Yeah,
See,
exactly.
St Albans committee will have to look at it in exactly the same way that we're looking at it now, which is that they can only refuse it on planning grounds.
Yeah.
They can't refuse it.
Exactly.
There's an
That's what I mean. I think our instinct is because it's an unjust rather.
Yes.
than-
Yeah,
So yeah.
Two different things, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is the moral side of it. if you
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
and there is the hard.
Agreed,
planning
yeah.
side. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, nothing can get built without number one's agreement.
exactly, the sale of the land.
So
So it's,
It might be mute anyway.
it's very sad and very unfortunate, but unfortunately, I feel that it's, it's a dispute that's outside of our hands, really, and outside of our remit.
Okay, so we're going to express concern and we're going to mention about the
Certificate fee, yeah,
certificate.
being correctly served, yeah.
And okay, are we happy with that?
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay.
So 5/2024/2197, 5/2025/0187, 0027, 0193 do not meet the criteria, so we now move to 5/2024/2165. Let's do we have a slide.
Okay, this application is a resubmission to the proposal that received permission in 2024. Proposal is for a very minor change to the approved scheme, namely at ground floor, there is a small adjustment to the rear extension to bring it all in line, and removal of part of the proposed front extension. At first floor, the rear element is also brought in line. Proposed small two-storey side extension has now been removed, and the proposed amendments are minor and do not differ much from what was already approved, and I've said to consider no objection.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we move to 5/2025/02/0268, Greg Lakers.
Okay, the proposal at ground floor is for extensions to formalise the footprint of the property to add additional living accommodation and reconfiguration of the internal layout. The footprint does not extend further than the rear building line of the neighbouring properties and not further than the front building line of number 66 Grove Road and no further than the existing building line to the side with number 70. The main and most impactful change is the increase in roof height and the change to roof line to accommodate the first floor accommodation, which is 3 bedrooms, 1 ensuite and a family bathroom. The rear, a flat roof dormer window is also proposed. To the rear, it overlooks the gardens and to a lesser extent, the side elevations of the properties in Pipers Avenue. There are no tree works and the site is not in the conservation area. There is ample parking provision on the frontage and other properties in the vicinity have expanded into the roof space, including the neighbour number 66, in addition to other properties further along in the street scene. So the precedence has been set in the area. at the point that I wrote the agenda, I said, consider no objections subject to no detrimental impact on the neighbouring properties and those in close proximity in Pipers Avenue. Policy ESD2 of the neighbourhood plan and policy 69 and 73 of the district plan affairs. However, looking online today, there are actually two letters of objection for number 1A Pipers Avenue and 1B Pipers Avenue. Essentially expressing concerns. I think I added this extra little one actually to the one that I originally sent out. Probably doing a bit more research today. So number 1A Pipers Avenue, which is the smaller infill
I went.
that's down there.
With the 3 roof lights, or what looks like 3 roof lights.
No, so we've got Grove Road that goes kind of
Yeah.
directly, and then you've got Pipers Avenue with the properties that run along here. So
Yeah.
1A Pipers A.
So there's a
1A
corner,
Pipers
and then it's
Avenue.
to the left of the corner.
So we've got, so 68 Grove Road, underneath that is 66 Grove Road, to the left is like an outbuilding number 66, and then 1A is to the left of that.
Okay, oh, right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they're expressing concern that the rear facing bedroom windows coupled with the recent removal of the tree in the back garden will result in a material loss of privacy to my rear indoor living space. It's currently a well-utilised space. Granting this application in its current form will result in a loss of privacy and an unacceptable level of overlooking to the point I would deem this particular part of my house unusable for purpose it's currently used for. So yeah, and then they also mention about the potential loss of light from the substantial increase in the size and height of the roof form. So that's 1A, and then 1B is the property that's to the left, which is the one where there's got the 2 roof lights, 2 atrium roof lights, and they pretty much echo exactly the same concerns. Over the bedroom windows will look directly into their side windows, the ground floor living area, an invasion of privacy, close proximity and direct line of sight from the new windows into their garden.
It's close proximity.
So there is 26 metres from the dormer to the side wall of number 1B. However, I think it's probably because of the rather large dormer window across the back, which you can kind of just about see further to the left.
Yeah.
I think it is going to have quite a vantage point, shall we say, of looking into their gardens.
Is so that
I don't think gardens were a problem to overlook.
So it just depends really. To have a direct vantage point into them, then possibly would be deemed as being a loss of privacy, certainly.
that's the front.
That is the front, yeah.
So is there a comparable window at the back?
So at the back- so at the back, there is a I think if you carry on through the back, yeah, there's a very large dormer window. Flat roof dormer window.
Like long and thin.
Long and thin.
Which ultimately is for 2 bedrooms and
It's like 9 windows. Yeah, 9 window frames.
But the 1A and 1B look like large houses to me. This is a dormer bungalow.
yes, but because they're now got accommodation in the roof space with this big dormer window directly looking out into their back gardens.
Yeah.
Do you know what the height's going to be?
I haven't measured the height. It doesn't differ hugely from the neighbour.
There's a dotted line along with the code.
No, it's the same.
Yes, the dotted line is the existing.
Thing.
Yeah, so it's the same height as the existing.
No, it is higher than
It is higher.
existing. It is higher.
Okay.
But I think the main issue that they've got is this rather large dormer window, flat roof dormer window. Going all the way along.
At the back,
Goes
yeah.
all the way along the back, which is essentially for both of the bedrooms.
It's like a view platform.
Does it apply to bedroom windows? I'd have thought it was a balcony or something.
Yeah, no, it does,
Oh, right.
yeah.
But we had that issue, Rosebery Avenue, a few months back, like, looking over the garden. So they had a balcony, there was a fire escape that became a balcony.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that one. And there was another one.
The thing with that though was that that there was concern expressed from the people that were side to the side.
Yeah.
Whereas this is directly looking straight out into the rear gardens because of the Pipers Avenue is at right angles.
So do you want to express concern?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't want to reject, but we want to express concern.
Not
We,
really.
we haven't really got.
I think we've got grounds to reject it, but express concern.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
So 2024, 227. So now we're on 2024, 19474 Victor Road, please, Heather.
Okay, planning permission has been granted twice in the last 3 years for the demolition and rebuild with a similar scheme to what is proposed in this new application. Evidential changes are the levelling off of the attic floor plan, raising the overall ridge height by 300 millimetres and minor elevational changes to the rear, including changes to the window formation. Otherwise, all other elements remain the same. There are a number of trees proposed removal, however, there is a soft landscaping plan in place for replacement. I've said consider no objections, subject to no less than meeting number 2, Wakefield Road, policy ESD2 of the neighbourhood plan and 72 of the district plan affairs.
That's a lot of glass, isn't
There's a
it?
lot of glass, isn't it?
There is a lot of glass.
Something to cleaning.
The, no complaints.
No, no.
Well. But then got no flying pigeons. Well, yeah. Okay,
Not my fault.
are we happy with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, 525 to those building criteria, so we move last one. Last one, side of the 25 0211, which is Coverdale Road.
Okay, planning permission was granted in 2023 for a single-storey rear extension which has not been constructed. This proposal is more detailed and still seeks to extend rearwards, but projecting further than the approved scheme, along with the addition of a two-storey side extension to expand the ground and first floor accommodation. The detached garage is also demolished to provide greater space for the proposed extensions, with an integral garage now included. The new proposals make the property more imposing with more dominance than the neighbouring properties. However, there are other large-scale properties in the street. The applicant has detailed that consultation has been had with the neighbours, with amendments made before submission to reduce any possible impact on them from the extensions. The 45-degree visibility zone for number 29 Kirkdale Road has been shown as not impacted, and number 25 is not affected by the proposals. Property is locally listed in the conservation area. There are no tree works and there is ample parking provision on the frontage. At the point of doing the agenda, I said no objection subject to no loss of meter to number 29 Kirkdale Road, and the design of materials being deemed as appropriate for this locally listed building in the conservation area. Policy is due to the neighbourhood plan and policy 69, 72, 85 and 87 of the district plan affairs. There is actually an objection online for number 25 Kirkdale Road, which I'll read out to you what some of their concerns are.
Is that
Bearing
the-
in mind they're the property to the left.
Yeah.
And it's not this side that the development is actually being.
So 25 has objected.
So if you see here, so 25 is to the left
And all of the proposals are pretty much to the right and
Yeah.
kind of centrally located. So, they say that the proposals will not be deemed lawful under permitted development rights due to the height and depth of the extension from the rear wall of the existing property. Well, that's correct, yeah, that's why they're submitting a planning application. No dimensions nor levels have been indicated on the elevations to understand the height and scale of the building. No context is provided to illustrate the height of the building and the levels in respect of the adjoining properties. Well, ultimately, they've addressed that by that the drawings are scalable. You don't have to put the scales, the written scales down. And they say the proposal not in line with planning policy and the scale and height of the extension is too large relative to the original property and the depth of the extension is greater than any precedent in the streets. Well, I disagree with that on the basis of what I've seen. Yeah. And then they say first floor French doors and Juliet balconies set a dangerous precedent, and these will compromise the privacy of rear gardens of the adjoining properties generally. French doors and Juliet balcony to bedroom 1 on the first floor facing 25 Kirkdale Road are entirely unnecessary and will compromise the privacy of the neighbouring property, whether they have frosted glass or not. Well, a Juliet balcony is
The Juliet, I can't stand out on it.
the window of the proposed, yeah, and the window of the proposed full first floor ensuite directly faces 25 Kirkdale Road and compromises the neighbour's privacy. Yeah, but an ensuite is going to have obscure glaze. So, yeah, I'm kind of not inclined to agree necessarily with the objections to 25
They do
Kirkdale Road.
seem entirely petty.
Hmm.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
Are we happy with that planning application?
I am, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
That's it. So we've got some works for noting.
So the only application that's on the list of decisions that I thought would be quite useful for me to update you on.
Yeah.
Is if you can remember, we regularly
Yeah.
have applications for 13,
Yeah.
13A and 13B
Yes.
Whiteman's Close.
It's the gentleman that came and,
This
That's
is,
important, yeah.
but we've, since that application, we've had another one.
yeah.
So this is kind of the context, this is the application that was submitted last time. It was withdrawn. So I think that the applicant maybe has realised that there's probably not anything to be done down there potentially.
No, your application come in for a block of flats.
And yeah, that was the only one that really was of any note.
Okay. I think that's all that, is it?
Yeah.
Does anybody has anything they want to?
So meeting closed at 20:29.
And the next meeting is on Tuesday, the 1st of April. In James.
Got to be here then. That's my apologies.